Hi, my name is Katelyn Todd, and I'm going to be giving a book review on the book Grown Up Digital by Dawn Tapscott. In this review, I'm going to be giving a brief summary as well as determining the recommended audience with that. I will also be discussing application to higher education as well as the book's credibility according to some of the literature that we've read in class as well as some outside literature. And lastly, I will be pulling in the biblical application and appraisal in relation to this book. So this book talks a lot about the technological advances that have affected the next generation. Tapscott points out that technology is literally like air to us. It's second nature. Because we've grown up with technology, we grow and adapt to the changes without skipping a beat. This book discusses the various ways that technology, internet, and media infiltrate our day-to-day lives and even our minute-to-minute happenings. Tapscott further notes in a diagram that the net generation makes up 27% of the population, which is actually the majority, followed by the boomers at 23%. Because of this, we can draw the conclusion that the net generation plays a huge role in today's society economically, politically, and especially technologically. While the first part of the book kind of gives a layout of the net generation and what to expect from them, the second part dedicates a chapter to each of the following settings in which the net generation functions. So there's a chapter about education, there's another chapter about work, another chapter about the net generation as a consumer, then another chapter about family, and a final chapter about the net generation in a political setting. Each of these sections at the end gives advice for those working with the net generation in a specific setting. These sections and chapters can be easily transferred into the recommended audience for this book. Like I previously mentioned, there are little bits at the end of each section that give applications for educators, managers, marketing professionals, parents, and politicians in dealing with the net generation. This book is recommended to those who are working with or working to appeal the net generation. I would also recommend this book to those who are part of the net generation. Not only does this book help those outside of our generation to better understand us and work with us, but it also helps those that are inside of the net generation to better understand themselves and those around them in their generation. So when talking about application to higher ed, I'm just going to share a quick story about Mark Zuckerberg, who you all know as the founder of Facebook. When he was in high school, he was taking a art history class, and he had actually the entire semester not attended class because he was so busy working on Facebook. Facebook was a project for one of his other computer design classes, so he had spent so much time working to create Facebook, he had entirely neglected this art history class. So in the final week to prepare for the final, he created a separate website where he uploaded photos and small descriptions and places to post notes from the class. And he invited his class members, and they all posted various notes and studied from these notes. And actually, Mark Zuckerberg and all of his classmates did so well on the test, and the professor was actually pleased at the collaboration that they had done outside of class. So this is just an example of a way that technology was being used in education. While it's an old example from over 10 years ago, it's a way that shows that students are going to bring technology into the classroom and find new ways to use technology in their learning. So because of this, higher education professionals need to stay on the up and up in technology. While I think that it has been said before, I think it's important for us as higher education professionals to value continued education and keep current with our students. Tapscott challenges educators to design programs according to the 8 norms of the net generation. These norms include choice, customization, transparency, integrity, collaboration, fun, speed, and innovation. Including these things in net gen learning experiences is a way to play into their strengths. Tapscott also challenges educators to see their net gen students as lifelong learners and not just students trying to pass a test. NetGen students have access to facts and information at their fingertips by going on Google and other search engines. Therefore, he calls educators to teach NetGen students how to learn and not what to know. This goes along with seeing college students in their holistic development. Students don't come to colleges and universities just seeking academic education anymore. They come to grow and develop as a whole person. That's just something we've been talking about throughout the duration of this class. So I think it's really a really good application in higher education. So this is just a quote that I pulled from the book that I thought was really good and applicable in higher education, and it states, it says, instead of lecturing, teachers should interact with students and help them discover themselves. This ties in with the whole student development, holistic learning outlook on students rather than just looking at them as academic learners. So in discussing credibility, I'm going to talk about a couple sources that just back up what Tapscott has been saying. If you can't see the accuracy and credibility of this book and of the Net Generation's hunger for and lifestyle revolving around technology for yourself in your own life or in the lives of those Net Gen students around you, then you can definitely read about it in countless other books and articles. Levine and Dean, from our text in this course, also discusses the massive presence of technology in the lives of the Net Generation. As we read pretty on in Generation on a Tightrope, the Net Generation wants to see more use of technology in the classroom, as well as more effective use of technology. In a sense, they want their professors and educators to catch up to them in order to better relate to and teach them. This goes right along with what Tapscott talked about in the section about the Net Generation as learners, which I talked about a lot in my higher education applications. Outside sources also confirm that this generation's bond to technology is practically unbreakable. Outside research confirmed that Tapscott's applications for higher education institutions to remain relevant to the Net Generation. It is necessary for higher education institutions to appeal to NetGen students by incorporating technology in a way that enhances learning. It's also important for higher education professionals to recognize, again, the holistic development that takes place in a student throughout their time at college. And this is just backed up through this article that I have cited, but also through other various research that I've seen throughout the course of this class. Lastly, talking about biblical appraisal, this was probably my favorite section of the report to research and to look into. As you can see, my first section here talks about how from generation to generation, no matter what generation or through the generational barriers or differences, He is Lord, and we know that His kingdom is forever and that our God is sovereign. And that was just something that I think is gives us peace, but also gives us hope that no matter what society says about our generation, we know that He is sovereign and that He has created us in His image above all of these things. Also, another section that I've included is to advance the gospel. I've included several passages here, like Psalm 78:6, that the generation to come might know, even the children yet to be born, that they may arise and tell them to their children. So it's just about advancing the gospel and from generation to generation to continue preaching His name and furthering His kingdom. And I've also included the classic Great Commission verse down at the bottom that talks about making disciples of all nations, no matter what the barriers may be, that we're advancing His kingdom and talking about His glory. And that concludes my presentation on the book Grown Up Digital by Dawn Tapscott. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you've learned something from it, and I look forward to seeing your comments.